Same thing. Are they seeing you show up? Are they seeing you still study film? Are they seeing you still treat your players the same? Or are you now compromising your values? Are you willing to cheat? Are you willing to do things that are unethical in order to get the results that you want? Or are you just showing up and putting in the work every single day and being consistent and seeing that that commitment to your faith and what you believe when things are hard?
You are listening to The Gospel in the Game Sports Podcast with your host, Dan Dromarski.
Okay, Shane, I'm going to toss you into the fire really fast. I'm going to put you in a coaching position in a sport outside of basketball. What sport are you coaching that you've never coached before?
I've never coached before. I've never coached football.
Ah, there we go. Interesting. A little more physical contact than basketball.
A little bit. Basketball is supposed to be physical. I think we've lost that a little bit. I grew up in the 90s, a little more physical back then. But
the old Charles Barkley elbows up.
Oh, man. There's so many good highlights on YouTube.
Yeah, a guy can watch physical basketball. Now it's like a little more floppy basketball. But you know what, though?
Yeah. There's
some good moments. I'm gonna give the sport a little bit of credit here. It's a lot more difficult to play than people present it as.
Oh my goodness. And it's they're starting to allow some of the physicality come back a little bit. But yeah, not like it was. Like you had the enforcers back in the day. It's almost like having Marty McSorley protecting Gretzky out there. You had those guys on your roster. Like there's a reason Michael Jordan never got touched. He had guys out there, right? And you knew if they got subbed on, you probably crossed a line somewhere.
Yeah, even though probably one of his guys that helped him keep things safe was a little bit different, but he was very good at getting balls off the board, wasn't he?
And he has some of the most fantastic highlight reels to go watch. My goodness, Dennis Rodman was fun.
Yeah. Quite the story with that one. One of those guys that you're like, if that guy ever knew the Lord, my goodness, that would be.
There's still time.
There's still time. That's right. He's still breathing.
There's still time. My brother, fun just side story, was in California watching the Blue Jays play in Anaheim, and they went out to eat at a Chili's after the game, and in came Dennis Rodman with a stack of $1 bills and just walked into the Chili's of all places and just started like spreading $1 everywhere. I just got a text like Dennis Rodman just walked in and is throwing $1. I was like, what?
Yeah,
at a Chili's. Anyways,
and the Canadian version of that is throwing loonies, and it's a lot more damage done.
Way more. Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, very much. So, welcome to the Gospel of the Game. I'm your host, Dan Dromarski, and with me today is Shane Sowden. Shane, lots of things to talk about. We're going to begin a little bit with the sport that you coach. You coach men's basketball at Briercrest. Now, Briercrest, tell me a little bit about the school where you're going, because it's becoming a little more popular with some of the wins that have been happening there.
Yeah, Briercrest College, we're a member of the ACAC, Alberta Athletics College Association in Alberta, and we're the only Saskatchewan school there. We've been located in Cairnport we just celebrated our 90th anniversary, but we started in the town of Briercrest. And so, yeah, we have 5 ACAC teams. We got hockey, we got men's and women's basketball, men's and women's volleyball. The men's volleyball team has been strong for a very, very long time. A couple of conference championships. Our women's volleyball program has been strong for a little while. And in the last few years, our basketball programs have caught up and have done really, really well. And they've done, they used to be really, really strong before the ACAC time. And the hockey team's has had some of their best seasons in the last 4 years. And so we're this small little Christian college of about 400 to 450 students in Cairnport, Saskatchewan. A lot of people say in the middle of nowhere, but for some reason, like the Lord just keeps blessing this place and good things are happening. So it's a cool place to work, and God keeps moving here. And
I would encourage you, if you have a moment, look on the Google Maps where Cairnport, Saskatchewan is. There's a reason why some people describe it and say it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but there's lots of things in multiple different directions. But in Cairnport, Saskatchewan, when school's not on, What's everyone doing?
That's probably the beauty of this place, is that you have to engage with other human beings.
Hmm.
It's really difficult to get away and not be with people. The relationships are what makes this place. There's game nights. The guys are always in the gym together. Dorm life is vibrant. So it's just like things that we kind of used to take for granted, hanging out, playing ping pong, playing pool, playing board games, those sorts of things happen regularly here. There's stuff always going on campus and stuff. Our weekend sports are huge. Like that's the draw for the town to come out, and I think we have the best fans in the conference. We pack out our old barn. We have a newer rink, but yeah, we pack it out, and it's a lot of fun. Is great, and it's a nice warm place to be in the middle of winter when you're in southern Saskatchewan. But yeah, it's the people that make this place special. And I always tell my recruits, I said, if you want to come to a place where you can focus on basketball, academics, growing in your faith, becoming, and becoming a man with little to no distractions, this is the place to be. And you can always find trouble to get into. You just got to work a little harder here to do it. And yeah, it's just a very wholesome, laid back, country town in Saskatchewan, and we love it. I've been here since 2005, and we've raised our family here, and it's a fantastic place to be and coach.
Now, being 2026, you came there in 2005. Growing up, you didn't put a poster on your wall and say, "This is where I'm going to coach basketball one day." How did you get involved with coaching in Briercrest?
My family was always connected to Briercrest. So my dad went to the high school here. He went to Caronport High School. And so we always had a connection to Briercrest. I grew up in Moose Jaw. And when I was in grade 11, I remember very, very distinctly, my dad asked me the question. He's like, "Okay, what are you going to do with your life? Like, what's the plan?" And just out of the blue. And I paused, and my response was, I hadn't really thought about it a ton. I said, "I think I'm going to be either a teacher or a pastor." Those are the two things. He kind of looked at me and he said, "Okay, good." And then from there, I was a multi-sport athlete in high school. I'd play volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, and baseball in the spring and summer. And I did very well in those sports. And my biggest dream was I wanted to get paid to play a sport. That was my goal. I was obsessed with sports, um, from a very young age. And when I was in my grade 12 year, I had a pretty good year, and I had offers I had to make a decision between basketball and baseball. I did well in both. I played for the Canadian national junior team that year in 1997, and got a scholarship to play for Division I school in Louisiana called Northwestern State University. And I went down there, and I knew I was wanted if baseball didn't work out, I knew I was going to teach and coach. Now, I never thought I was ever going to coach college. That was not on the plans. I went to school in the States for 5.5 years, and the way down there, if you get into college coaching, you finish your coaching, you finish your playing career, and then you become a graduate assistant for a year or two. You do the grunt work, get your master's degree. They usually pay for it, and then you start at the bottom rung, and you work your way up. And usually, you're a college head coach by the time you're in your mid-30s somewhere in the States, because there's so many schools. That didn't really appeal to me. I kind of thought I'm gonna just go do the high school route. And so my wife and we were engaged at the time. She was going to the University of Saskatchewan. I was going to a school in Missouri, and I graduated. And we decided to set down roots in Moose Jaw, and I got an email from an old teacher at one of the local schools in Moose Jaw, and said, "Hey, we heard you're moving back. We need some help with our senior boys basketball team. Would you help?" And it was the only offer I had at the time, and I said yes. And yeah, we're off within 2 weeks coming home. I went from being the assistant coach to the head coach because the head coach stopped showing up. And so I was a head boys basketball coach at 23. Had no clue what I was doing. And, just got thrown right into the deep end. And I was 23 then. By the time I was 28, I was the college women's head coach at Briercrest, because in 2005 moved to Caronport. I got a teaching job at the high school and was the athletic director, and did okay coaching the boys basketball team. And then the college asked if I'd try and resuscitate the women's program that had fallen on hard times. And So I'm 28 years old, and like, I never thought about coaching college, but I said yes, and that's where we're at today. Still doing it years later.
The theme of our pre-recorded conversation might have been what you just said, saying yes. Um,
There you go. Yeah.
when all of a sudden something comes up that you don't necessarily expect or anything happen, you got to go through the process, don't you? And sometimes that's the being in the thick of it, going through the difficult times. And we understand as believers, perseverance develops character, and adversity happens for a reason. Now you're developing a program, not just coaching a team. When you've been doing it for more than, I'd say, the kind of the tenure of 3 years, you start to really kind of focusing on development and having a plan, because you have to adapt, because people are start learning a little bit about your coaching style, and you have different students. And how was the coaching experience at the collegiate level now compared to the high school, and doing it? How was your perspective on development?
A few seconds of your time while you are listening. Please like and follow the podcast. We appreciate your help. Now back to the gospel in the game.
I had somebody very early on when I was coaching, when I coached college the first time from '07 to 11. I had somebody talk to me, he's like, "Okay, Shane, coaching college is all different." He said 80% of it is recruiting. You need 80% of it is recruiting and fundraising. The other 20% is coaching. If you're coaching college, you probably can coach. You know the game, you have the system, you know how to do it. But like, if you don't have the players to do it, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter. You can be the best coach in the conference, and you can help that group improve. But if you don't have the right DNA on your team, it's going to be tough to beat the other team, that sort of thing. And so I learned that the hard way the first couple years, coaching the women's program here. And then we started getting some of those recruits. And then, fast forward to coaching the men's years later, we started collecting talent. But then what's the separate? Once you have the same talent, what's the separator? What's the culture? What's the trust? What's the character? Like all those things, like, are you a better team? Right? Because when you get to a Final Four, all the Final Four teams, the Final 8 teams are all good. When you get to the conference tournament, anybody can beat anybody on any given night. But what separates the good teams from the great, right? And we found that was culture and believing in each other. And so we started really focusing on those sorts of things, like once we got there. And so for us, a big switch happened, and this happened about a season before our ACAC championship in 24-25. I worked with a mentor. His name's JP Nurbin. He worked for TOC coach. And in 2018, I hired him to work with me as a mentor coach. I was making a transition from being a vice principal to a college coach. And I just knew I needed some guidance along the way. And, I've been listening to podcasts, reading books for forever. My master's degree said, invest in yourself, and invest in a coach, all those sorts of things. And so, okay, I'm going to invest in myself. And he pushed me. I worked with JP for 5 years, and we're still good friends to this day. He always pushed me to, like, well, what's the purpose of your program? Like, why are you doing this? What are your values? What's the vision? And I always thought it was cheesy, right? Like, and I had a degree in leadership, and so I understood the importance of it, but it just didn't feel right. And it wasn't until 4 years ago he connected me with a coach. His name is Greg Tonigal. He actually be great on your podcast. He's the head coach at Indiana Wesleyan University down in Indiana, and they're one of the top NAIA basketball programs in the country every year. They get Division I guys giving up NIL money to come play NAIA just because it's just a different thing. And so he set me up with a Zoom call with Greg, and we just talked for about 2 hours. And I just sat there taking notes he was mostly just listening to him talk about how they built the program and what's the purpose. And so they did this thing called the Father-Son Retreat. And for some reason, and so at the end of their training camp every year in the summer, they do a father summer retreat where they invite every single father of of the players on the team to attend a week-long retreat. Not a week long, but probably about 3 or 4 days. And sometimes they'll do a missions trip. Sometimes they'll just go away to a lake and have a cabin and they just do team building stuff for 3 or 4. But they invite the fathers in. And so, but the big thing is they had an emphasis on developing the whole person spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, all those sorts of things. And just really like we want to raise strong men who are great husbands. And it's just it's like that's it. Like husbands and fathers. Those just two words just came into mind. And so what was born for Briercrest men's basketball was our program exists in order to develop men of character integrity who are going to be equipped to be engaged fathers and committed husbands in light of eternity. That was our mission statement. For the first time in 4 years, and I remember calling JP, I was like, I think I finally got it. Because nothing clicked until that moment. You know, you could have all these vision statements, like, no, there has to be a bigger purpose than winning games. Like what's really winning? And I was like, that's winning. If our program develops that, we're winning regardless of the scoreboard. Funny thing is, as soon as we did that, we started winning. And I'm not saying that's like a magic pill, but we went from 2-19 to 14-7 to 19-1 conference championships, and then 14-7 last year. And so it's been this weird fun stretch for the last 3 years where we took the emphasis off of how many games are we winning, and we're still focused on developing young men, but the big thing is we want to try and win games. So then flipping it, we care more about who our players are becoming, and we want to win. We're still crazy competitive, but we started doing that when that wasn't the main focus. And so, yeah, that's probably that for us. That was the piece of development of who are our players becoming. Like, what kind of man are you? Who do you want to be, and who are you becoming through being part of this program? And that was a big shift for us developmentally and being really intentional in how we do that. So we started doing a father-son retreat 4 years ago.
That's so good.
And it's been fantastic. So, yeah.
That's so good. It reminds me of interviewed a former CFL football player, Ed Joseph. Ed Joseph, wide receiver for the Eskimos. His boys played hockey. And one of the things that he talks about was coaching his son's team. He's like, I'm not a hockey player. And he's like, we weren't doing very good. And all of a sudden we decided we invited the parents into our post-game conversation. Everyone would get changed, and we're going to have a post-game conversation, and all the moms and dads are going to be there. And so he said, as soon as I invited in the moms and dads, all of a sudden we started winning. And he said, just this open line of communication of having the parents see and the boys see, or the kids see, the priority was people. That's what it was, developing them as people and who they were as people. And one of the things that really stood out to me, he talked about how he talked about not doing the talk one of the times. And one of the moms was like, no, I need this. This is how I get through my work week. As I have the weekend conversation at your hockey talk, it gets me through my week. And he was like, whoa, we're not just impacting the person who's playing on the ice. I'm helping transform families. And so when I hear stuff like that, this father or son idea, it's like so much of the focus would be on the kid. Oh, see, we have your father here. We have this. It's like, no, you're teaching dads too. We hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you'd like to support us, or you'd like to see this podcast grow in your area, drop us a line. Send us an email, send us a message. We'll send you some details on how you can support, how you can encourage us. There's always more people to reach with the gospel in the game.
Yeah, and just think of like our current sporting culture and how many parents are finding their identity in their kids' youth, in their kids' participation in sports, and how they do. Right. So if their kid is good at their sport, they live vicariously through their kid. But now you're inviting them into that. You're inviting them into the team talk. You're inviting them into the deeper things that you're learning through sport, rather than, your kid's performance and how many minutes did he play, or how many shifts did he get, or how many goals did he score, or playing whatever it is. which usually kind of become the norm instead of pivoting a little bit and now you can use the drive home for a different purpose. You can ask better questions. You can understand where the coaches and other players and parents are coming from. Just gives a whole different perspective to actual development. And we all know that like Hockey Canada across is the perfect example of we need more of that. Because you're taking these kids out of their homes at 14, 15 years old. That's hard. There's great billets out there. It's like these kids are getting thrown into an ecosystem that is meant to chew them up, and value some things that probably aren't really good in our culture. And we've seen some negative effects of that. And so, yeah, the more we can invite parents in and see them as allies rather than, fighting against them, which is really hard and it's scary. Most coaches would be terrified to bring parents into the locker room after a game.
Yeah. Oh, for sure they would. One of the goals of the Gospel in the Game Sports podcast is in order to provide unity, not only with parents and the player, but also with the church.
Mm-hmm.
When you have kids go away to play college or even at a young age, you use the hockey example, all of a sudden you're removing them from a common environment. And one of the common environments is not only their own room and their own bed, but it's their own extended family that maybe they grew up with in the church. Talk a little bit about that, about what the coach can provide and the atmosphere that's important around developing people as a coach and kind of being a mentor to these young people.
I think first of all, like you can have all the great verbal, you can talk the talk, but you've got to walk the walk. And so for me, when I'm recruiting and my guys come in, they need to see that what I value and then that I actually follow through on that. Because I'm finding a lot of players these days are coming from they're either transferring here or they're coming from high school programs where their level of trust is so low because they feel like they've been lied to or used for the wrong reasons, and haven't had positive experiences on their last teams. And so for me, it's when I tell them like, hey, we're on the phone or I'm on a recruiting trip, is that okay, we're going to invest in you as a man, and I care more about who you're becoming, and I will gauge my success as a coach when I visit you in 20 years and I see you with your kids, with your wife. So, I was like, you better invite me into your house for supper and I'm going to watch how you're interacting with your family. Are you engaged at your local church or your community? Like, how are you living out the values that we talked about for, the 1 to 5 years that you were here? And if you're doing those things, and if I can have that type, like, then I'll know I was successful as a coach. And so that sounds great to parents and players, on the recruiting trail. It's a different thing once they get here. Because now I'm not only well, I guess in charge, but I'm their main point of reference as far as like them growing in that way. But I'm also the guy that now determines their playing time in some ways, and I have to make some tough calls. And so I found being brutally honest, one of my old professors in seminary called it caring candor. It's like you have to be candid, but you have to show a level of care. Like, yeah, I'm telling you the truth. Like I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to yell at you, but like this is who you're becoming, and my door is always open. And we're going to talk about this. And we're going to be honest. And this is where I think you're at. This is where I think you need to be better. This is where I think you're doing awesome. And being willing to have those hard conversations. Where earlier in my career, I would kind of skirt the, I don't want to hurt your feelings or whatever. And that's not loving somebody. Right. And so I've had more players who maybe I've told the truth to and they don't stay, but they come back and work camp or they come back to games, and because they respect the fact that we were able to have honest conversations.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's about the simplest of stuff. I questioned a couple of years ago why we don't talk about things. One of the things as a hockey chaplain that comes up often with athletes is just influences. And I think the culture has so many things that are acceptable in our day and age, or just common.
Mhm.
One young man that I worked with didn't play a game sober for like almost 3 years before he came to our team.
Mhm.
And you're like, wait a second, aren't you like 19?
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely wild to all of a sudden see these influences, but it's not just influences. I always say they learned from the best. They learned something from someone at some point.
Mhm.
And you're talking about investing these good things and these good habits into people and how important it is to do it yourself. Outside of the coach, who else do you point to as a coach for some of these young men to be influences on them in life?
It's everything from, so at our retreat, we invite not only the dads, because you're not going to be able to get all the dads here. Like we've had guys from Ivory Coast and San Diego and Tennessee and from all like Nova Scotia. We've had guys from there. It's hard for their dads to get here, right? Even though last year we had 14 of our 19 dads come, which blew my mind, which was awesome. But we invite what we call mentor dads every year. So we invite men on campus who want to invest in the next generation. So some of our profs are like Jamie Raymer, who's our associate athletic director, mutual friend. He comes out. My dad, he's our massage therapist, and this is his best. He's like, he gets to work on these guys like twice a week for 10 minutes just to get them ready. And the stuff that they talk about on the table of just sharing life, like it's more life-giving for him because he's like, Shane, I would never got to know these guys, right? Like, so we invite so-called mentor dads. We have dads whose sons are no longer part of the program that ask to come to the retreat still, just because they want to be father figures. Because some of the guys we have on our team, their dad's not involved.
Yep.
He's not there, for whatever reason, right? And so there's that. So then it's fun for me after we have the retreat and then we're playing games and you're seeing my players not just going to talk with their parents, but they're going to connect with the other dads that they created a handshake with at the retreat.
Nice.
Or they were on their team for this competition. Like it was just all these, and so you're just seeing these different, and then they have different connection points with some of the people on campus. So that's a big thing. And so we've brought in other people as guest speakers, chapel times, all that kind of stuff. We have a great chaplain. His name's Kevin Thiessen. He does a great job with the guys. And so it's just being intentional about there's people here for you, and let's go connect over coffee, or there's people here for you if you need them. Then the other thing is you have your like face-to-face mentors that personally, but then who are the mentors who like what you listen to and what you read? Those are mentors as well. So we talk about, like I love reading old dead guy theology. So, Charles Spurgeon, all those guys. I love that stuff. They're mentors.
I'm laughing right now because even from the pulpit, I tell people, I say, listen, go ahead and read something from some theologian. It's like having coffee with a dead guy.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It really is. It's so good. And mostly you have to do a lot of listening because he ain't hearing you.
No.
But I love the example that you gave of even your own father participating in with it. And I just had this mental image on the table of working on someone and hitting a tough point and having a 10-minute conversation on a pressure point. And the person having to give an honest answer because he'll push harder otherwise. But just this great opportunity to serve others facilitates a conversation, doesn't it? People, I think, often when they think about mentoring, it's like, oh, I got to like sit down with someone and tell my deepest, darkest secrets. Well, no, it's not. It's having a relationship. And you'll be amazed. I think for someone who hears this, you'll be amazed some of the times that people come into mind and you're just like, why did I get to know this guy? And all of a sudden something happens in life and you're like, whoa, that guy experienced this, but like 15 years ago. I should call him and get his perspective on this.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how God's fingerprints are all over relationships. For someone who's looking to foster relationships and maybe they don't have access to something like this camp or other things, if you could talk a little bit about the resource that you're involved in. You just published a second book, which is a devotional. Talk a little bit about this, like not only this for this passion to mentor and to connect people, but what got you into providing a resource for someone to use even alone without someone in front of them?
A few seconds of your time while you are listening. Please share this episode on your social media and tell what has impacted you through this episode. The more listeners like you share, the more people know about the gospel in the game.
Right. Well, if you go back, my freshman year in university I became a book nerd. Like, we're traveling the country in a bus. We didn't have phones. We had the crappy VHS videos in the bus. So I just remember we're at a Walmart in Lake Charles, Louisiana, playing McNeese State, and and Billy Graham's autobiography came out. And I don't know why the heck I got it, but it was $10, good old American dollar there. And pick up this 800-page mammoth.
I was going to say, it's not a small book.
No. And I was the only Christian on the team, which is kind of crazy, like 40 guys. And I'm just on the bus reading this thing, and guys are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But that was the reading became a love of mine there, right? And so, fast forward 20 some years now, always wanted to write a book, create something that could help others. Whether I was a teacher or a vice principal or a coach, one of my greatest joys is resourcing others wherever they're at. Like, can I provide value that will help them grow in whatever they're going through? And so I got invited to be a co-host on the Grit and Growth podcast 2 years ago. And last year, about about a year and a half, 14 months ago, my co-host and I, Justin, just started talking. Like, hey, we are starting to talk. Like, we always have had great guests, but the content we're talking about is just it's great. It doesn't even feel like work. Like, we go on, we get to talk to world-class leaders, athletes, business people, and they're just sharing so much wisdom. How do we share this in a different format other than a podcast? And so we talked with a friend who had published a few books, and he helped us out with it. And so we basically just wanted to take some of the main messaging from the show and put it into book form. And we were interviewing so we kind of had the idea of like what we want, what the theme of the book. We had the content for the book. We had no title. And so we had just interviewed a high school basketball coach from Regina. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Jeff Glassbell. And he's won, I think, 11 provincial championships in the last 25 years. I think he's set the record now, and probably going to win a few more before he retires. And we asked him a question on the podcast, like, what's your definition of excellence? He's like, well, I don't really talk about excellence. I talk more about significance. And so whatever. And so a few weeks later, like, it was really good, but a few weeks later, just said to Justin, why don't we call this significance over success? It just kind of came, like, not that success is bad, but what is truly significant in the day-to-day, in the season of what are we trying to produce? And so you just talked about having mentors, like old dead theologians. Well, I'm a big believer you got to lead yourself first before you lead others, and be really intentional about that. And so for me, and not everybody's like this, and I think sometimes we make excuses, but to find that thing that's going to fill our cup daily, and usually first time in the morning. And as a busy coach who's a father of 3, got a lot going on, I never regret cracking my Bible in the morning, and I never regret reading a few pages of a good book or a devotional. Just to get, but I can tell the few times in the year that I don't read, like, it's probably like 5 times a year, for whatever reason, I won't open my Bible in the morning, and I can tell later in the day, just there's something I haven't connected to Jesus through his written word. And for some reason there's a void there. But when I couple that with, reading a few chapters of my Bible, prayer, it could be journaling, whatever does it for you. But then a good solid devotional or book, a few pages, for some reason, I'm just better that day. I'm in a better mood. I'm in a better headspace. I'm better focused. And I've taken some time. And quite honestly, 15 minutes. I like to do longer, but that's all it takes is 10 to 15 minutes. And it's such a important investment. And so for us, when we wrote the book, like 2 Christmases ago, the book, it conveyed, it was our first one. But then we just kind of thought, well, it'd be really just simple to take a devotional content for 30 days from the book. And I like both of them. The devotional convicts me. I created it. Like, and so I'm reading through it like, oh my goodness, like I gotta listen to my own advice because this is hard, right? And so I we always want to create content that we would read, and we really think we've done that with both books. And the devotional we just put out about 6 weeks ago. And whether you're an athlete or a coach or a leader or a parent, it 2 pages every day, some great questions. And I had somebody come to me today, said, "Hey, I got your book. I want to buy 50 copies so I want to hand it out to everybody because more people need to read this." And I was like, that's probably one of the coolest endorsements. I said, "Can you go put that on Amazon right now? Because we need we need that because it's so if it just helps somebody, but I just really think it's really important that you invest in yourself, like from a spiritual standpoint. Like, what are you feeding your heart and your mind? Because we're in a battle, and we've got to get out there. And if you're not listening to good stuff, whether it's music or podcasts or sermons or Bible or good books, you're not working with a full deck of cards. Like you're falling short here, and you're not equipped.
Mm.
And so we just wanted to help fill that space a little bit for people who are looking for something to give them that jolt on a daily basis.
One of my mentors did that with a book and gave me a copy of it. I'm like, "What do you mean handing out a book? Like you're just randomly handing out a book?" And he's like, "Yeah, I bought a case. Enjoyed it so much, I bought a case." I had started doing that myself, and it's interesting how that, even like you said, that's fuel. That is fuel. The other side of it is when you're the person actually handing it out, it's hit a nerve. I think it's got to hit a certain nerve. You've actually not just like you've like made your point, but you've actually struck a nerve with someone when they buy a case and they hand it out because now they're putting their money where their mouth is. Let's talk a little bit about that investment in time. It sounds like things are going pretty solid in regards to not only coaching. Now you've had some experience doing mentoring, being connected with other believers, helping out young people. Sounds like sunshine and roses. Life's not exactly like that, is it? I think sometimes someone tuning into our life, and social media has kind of been guilty of doing this for everyone. We see the best side of everyone. Tell me a little bit about slugging through the mud. When you're a dad, a husband, involved with a big time commitment like coaching, sometimes things are heavy. Let's talk about hauling the heavy baggage a little bit. What are some of the encouraging things that you can share to someone who maybe right now is waist deep in mud and they're going through it?
Yeah. Again, my mentor, JP Nurbin, said to me years ago, before we started doing this stuff, he just said he was with me when, before we were winning more than we were losing. He got to see me low. Like, I don't know if I should do this. I'm a terrible coach, that sort of stuff. And he didn't believe it. And I needed somebody like that in my life, just coming alongside me and reminding me of who I am, whose I am, and why I'm doing this. And so I needed, I guess one of the first questions I would ask is who are your 3 a.m. friends? Who are your foxhole friends that when you feel like a loser, when things are just hard, you can just shoot a text like, "Hey, I need prayer." Or you send them a voice message and you just explain, and they're gonna support you, pray for you, but also if they hear something in that, they're not gonna be afraid to come alongside you and like a gentle challenge. And sometimes it's a harsh challenge where it's like, "Okay, you're being an idiot. We love you, but okay, let's go." that sort of thing. And like, yeah, I'm going to pray for you, but I think you know the course of action. You just need to, take action and go. So so I would challenge every person, like, who's that person that you can call at 3 a.m. or those friends that are going to be with you in the foxhole when the arrows are flying. Um, Go back to my friend JP. He encouraged me early on. I was like, you need to share your story. I was like, what? Well, I'm not a winning coach yet. He's like, doesn't matter. He said more people will resonate with your story and what you're going through as a coach than like Mike Krzyzewski or the most popular coaches. Like, we're talking basketball there. He's like, because like people can't, they don't understand what he's going through. His level of stress is way different than yours, and you're more the norm. More people are going through what you're going through. And so through that time, another mentor mentioned, she's like, Shane, your greatest struggle often is going to become your greatest superpower. Like, God is going to use your greatest struggle to impact others once you come through it. And that just hit me like a punch to the face. You're just like, okay, Lord, how long is this going to go on? Like, how long are we going to start struggling this way? And so I've just realized, my college career did not go the way I thought it was going to go. There was injuries, there was lies, there's mistrust, there was all sorts of things. And some of that's on me, and some of it was different circumstances. And my coaching career kind of went like this for a long time. And you kind of go through the fire and then realize every single struggle you're going through, okay, the Lord's going to bring you through this, and you don't know what's going to be on the other side. But if your focus is not on yourself, and for me, it's who my players are becoming. So after a tough loss, okay, what's really important here? Is it that we lost? Am I going to go mope in the hotel? Or is this now to go meet with some guys one-on-one and see how they're doing? And let's regroup. And how's this actually going to make us stronger tomorrow, next week, next season? Maybe it's 2 years from now. So I'll tell you, like, when we won the championship 2 years ago, oh man, 8 of those guys went through some of the worst seasons ever. Like 2-19, like 2 wins in a season. That's rough. We went through some hard times. And then to go from that to a few years later going 19-1, like, those hugs and those talks after winning, and even now the guys will stop by and it's just special because you went through it together. It just means more. Even when we won, there's a photo of me just watching the celebration. And I just remember, I'm like, I just watched, take this in, and I think I was able to appreciate the moment for what it was. This isn't going to be fulfilling. This isn't going to satisfy. But there was just this sense of gratitude of like, hey, Lord, I never really thought this was possible. And it's not about the win, but seeing all these guys, they learned resilience. They learned teamwork. They learned commitment, to see that. So there's always something bigger at work. Like, and you go through it enough, you go through you go through the mud enough, you kind of start looking like, oh, okay, like, okay, this is going to turn out for good eventually, but when? Like, one of my favorite verses in the Bible, Genesis 50-20. If you're going to ask me who would you like to hang out with, I'd like to hang out with Joseph. Like, that's just my guy. I don't know why, mostly because I feel like his whole story from Genesis 37 through 50 is he did some dumb things, but he was also really faithful. And so some of the stuff he has to own and repent of, but then other stuff, he just gets treated poorly by almost everybody in his life through different seasons. But through that, he builds resilience and grows. And then, chapter 50, verse 20 is like, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Yeah.
And that's just that reminder of that verse. Like, okay, so when you're going through it, okay, this may feel like Satan or whoever's using this for evil, but God's going to redeem this somewhere. And that's the beauty of the gospel. It's like this, he's a redemptive God. And so trusting in that, and that comes back to just, I think it's so important to remind yourself of those promises every morning. Like, be on a reading plan, be in a group of guys that can talk things out, have a good devotional. It's a non-negotiable for me. Like, you just have to, because it's so easy to get distracted by the wrong things.
Yeah, I've been going through this year morning and evening with C.H. Spurgeon.
Oh, Charles Haddon.
And just Unbelievable.
Your beard's almost there. If you get it a little more,
But you know what?
you need a pipe.
I went through this and I had this flashback in my head. I had bought the book like 26 years ago, 28
Hardcover?
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I barely touched it. And when I finally rediscovered it, I was like, why have I been waiting so long? What? And you reminded me of that when you talked about Joseph. The Bible, there's not a lot said about the gaps in time. It's not sequential. It doesn't just go back to back to back. There's gaps in time where he's forgotten about in prison, when there's like just things happen. Life is just there. And it was just, it's so raw that you're like, okay, Lord, this is the march of the unqualified. The old, the Bible is outside of Christ. And you're allowing these people to be pieces of this beautiful puzzle. I can't wait to see how my little jagged piece of cardboard fits into the big picture. You made me think of, well, as sometimes the people that are on the side observing all of this. For many guys, I probably relate with you on this, is my wife's a great support to allow me to do what we do. As a coach, you're busy always coaching your players. How do you, as a coach and as a man, flick the switch and not coach your house?
Oh boy. I try really hard not to bring work home. My wife's a public health nurse. When she leaves at 5, it's gone until tomorrow. When I come home from practice, if practice didn't go well, or I have to have a meeting with a player, or we're not figuring something out on our system, like I wake up at 2 a.m. and I'm overthinking, and like that sort of thing. And so I think that just is one of those things where you need those support systems. You need what's your own system? And be like, what do you mean? What's your personal system? Yeah. Okay. So where do you go? What are the guardrails you have in place to feed yourself so that your cup, because it's going to happen as a coach, your brain doesn't turn off. So a big thing for me is, how are you filling your cup physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then professionally? Like, how are you filling your cup? So how are you taking care of yourself? And so I have found it doesn't need to be a big thing, but I think as far as coaches, I think it's really, really important. One, are you investing in yourself spiritually every day? Somewhere where it's a devotional prayer, like set it, like that's a non-negotiable. You've got to set aside time. And that might be walking to work and you're praying, or driving the car and praying, or listen to the Bible on, like, there's just no excuse anymore, but there has to be that daily deposit. How are you taking care of yourself physically? I've found in my journey, when I'm taking care of myself, like what I'm putting into my mouth and how I move my body, I'm just a better coach. I'm able to deal with stresses and anxiety. And that's something I don't think we talk about in the church a lot. I don't think we talk about that in a coaching profession a lot. There's a lot of self-medicating that goes on with, not just, we think of self-medication as something destructive, as like alcohol or drugs or pornography or all that kind of stuff. And those are bad, but we don't really talk about self-medicating with food or Netflix or whatever. And those are ways of escape, that those aren't bad things. We just kind of abuse them. And so I think it's really important to have those guardrails. And again, to have those foxhole friends, just remind you, like, well, why are you doing this? And I think it's really, really important. So like today, this is funny you asked me this question, because it's my off season. My guys get here in 12 days for training camp. Everything's kind of ready to go. Had to have make two really difficult decisions on personnel and my roster for next year. And it came down to, I had to stick to what are my values, and I had to make two really difficult calls on our upcoming season, which I know deep down it was the right call, but they were extremely difficult to do. And it just wore me out mentally because they were big decisions I'd been weighing for a while and they finally made them. And so in that moment, it's like, okay, what am I going to stick to? Okay, go for a walk, surrender to the Lord. Just be honest. So my wife knows, right? Because how many times when frustration at work and then we get frustrated or our tone's off with our spouse or our kids, and it has nothing to do with them, right? And so for me to say, hey, this is what happened. It's just so they know. So it's I think it's being really important of making sure your cup is filled in certain areas so that when the adversity hits, you're in the best possible position to deal with it well. I think too many times we try and deal with that adversity when our cups are low because we've just neglected ourselves. And I think it's just really important to take care of ourselves so that we're ready to do that. And that's something that I've failed at numerous times.
Oh man, I hear you. You and I talked before this recording about our episode with Brad Cooper, and Brad Cooper,
he was awesome.
He brought that up though so well with Dave in that conversation and this thought process about like we don't talk about it at church. We don't talk about it with men about like health, like not just mental health has become more and more a thing. Hey, that's fine. That's great. That's good. Physical health too. And hey, I feel at it all the time too. At the same time, it's like, man, like sometimes you just got to grab onto the reality of like, I remembered 20 years ago, my grandfather having a bad back and saying to myself, you know what, I'm not going to have that. I need to make my back as strong as possible. Because if this is genetics by any means, I've got to be ahead of the game. We don't think of that ahead of the game mentality anymore. And as a coach, and as a coach here, I think we get it maybe a little bit more. It's like, hey, man, everything that you've invested in June, July, August is going to come out, not in September only, but like March, February. When everyone else is burning out, you still got legs. You're just putting it into fifth gear.
Yeah.
And I think we don't handle that in that same way, physical health and even just spiritual health, where we just, so many people are running on fumes.
Yeah.
What is a good word of encouragement that you would give to someone? Maybe someone's heard this and listening to this and they're like, boy, you just read my mind, running on fumes. How do I park and fill up here?
Well, one, feel free to share my cell number and email in your show notes because this is something that's really important to me because I've been in that burnout stage. When I resigned from coaching the girls back in 2011, I didn't know if I was going to head coach again. I went back and coached in the high school. I went and coached volleyball for 3 years, which I had no clue what I was doing. But it was a lot of fun to teach something that I don't know if we won a lot. Like I was really competitive, but it was just different. It was a different space. And I got to be an assistant coach for a year at the high school level on a really good team. And it was one of my old former coaches from elementary school. And he asked me to be the assistant coach. And he didn't know it at the time, but he was saving my coaching career in some ways. And I told him at the year-end banquet that year, I was like, I was burnt out on coaching and didn't know if I was going to do this again. You kind of saved that, and just because of he poured into me and just gave me space to kind of heal from a difficult season. And so there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But knowing, my wife says all the time, and this was my mother-in-law said this all the time to us and my grandkids, every time we'd leave somewhere, they both say, remember who you are and whose you are. And knowing who you are, not just in Christ, like that's the most important. Like, who does Jesus say you are? Right? Like, I'm a son of God, and what does that mean? And you can go through all the different statements through scripture of who Jesus says we are when we are in Christ. And then that's your identity. And if you go from that posture, it helps. And then you start realizing, well, does my identity come from my coaching or does it come from who I am as a coach? So I'm a coach who's engaged with my players, who cares for my players, who shows up every day, who models the way. Like you start, well, who am I? And then realizing the valley is like one of the greatest places to be in. It just really sucks when you're in it. But like, I come back, I think it was at Second Corinthians chapter 12, where it's like, my power is made perfect in weakness.
Mm.
Like, I've got tattoos on my arms of verses because I need reminders. And so that's one that I'm tempted to put on there. Is just like, hey, God sometimes does his greatest work when we feel our weakest, and just like surrender, surrender, surrender. Um, Isaiah 26:3-4 always gets to me. It's like, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. How many times do I go out? Like, we walk again, we're in Caronport, it's flat, there's fields. I'll go walk the grid roads and just pray. It's like, hey, Lord, just those verses just back to him. Like, hey, I'm struggling with anxiety or stress over this player or this situation. You keep him in perfect peace whose mind is saying, go help me to be focused on you, make straight my paths, just reciting scripture back and back. So I don't think any of this is any that your listeners have never heard. I just think we give up on it too soon. It's those small, it's like showing up to practice every day. Well, showing up and reading your Bible every day for 10 minutes, that's flexing that muscle. Getting scripture in your head, learning. One big thing I've tried is like, when I'm facing adversity is, do I go to Jesus first or my friends? My friends are awesome, but they're not God. And so sometimes before I'm about to send the text, it's like, okay, put the phone down. Lord, I'm going to give this to you first. And then I text my friends. Hey, what do you guys think? Can you pray for me? What's your feedback? That sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a changing of the, like, doing hard things, like showing up when it's really difficult. I think God is ready to do something really sweet. But sometimes that takes a little while.
Yeah, even for guys like Job, all of a sudden it's like, wow, we went through a lot of this book before all of a sudden you had the conversation with God that you really needed to have.
Man, Job. I when I was young, when I was transitioning from, again, I shared some articles years ago where I struggled with mental health. So when I finished my baseball career, I didn't have a support system. So I was this athlete for 15, 20 years, and I'm just done. And I was student teaching down in Kansas City, Missouri, and I was lost. And I came home, and my dad knew something was off. I moved home, and he said, "You need to go see somebody." And I was like, "No, I'll figure it out. I'm tough. Only weak people see counselors." All this kind of stuff. Had a lot of pride, but I was broken. And I went through about another month where I was just, I don't. There's something going on in my brain that something's not broken, but something needs some care. And I said, I'm tired of feeling this way. And so I went and started seeing a counselor for about 6 months. It was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And I started sharing about that because people in my sphere saw me as, oh, this successful person who doesn't have problems. And then when I started sharing that I went through a period where I needed help, I needed professional help to help me navigate a life transition from being part of a team every day for 20 years or 15 years, whatever it was. And now that's gone. Well, who am I now? Right. And the amount of men that read that article, I threw it on medium.com and Facebook. And I got personal messages from guys like, I never thought you would have gone through that. Thank you for sharing. Can we get together for coffee? I was like blown away with the response because so many men were going through the same thing. And it might not have been depression, but just like who am I? What's my purpose? What's my worth? Right? Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? I've had kids, I'm married, I should be happy, but there's nothing. Right? And so just to talk, like just to get it out there. And again, this was my friend JP, just like, share your story, share your stuff, because more people are going to resonate. And the response, I never thought I'd get the response we got. And that's why we wrote the books. Like, the books aren't perfect, but it's just basically saying, hey, here we are, we're exposing ourselves, come grow with us.
You know what? That's
sort of thing.
That's so good, because I think as men, we think putting ourselves in a place where we're vulnerable is weakness. And I was watching this talk, and the guys were talking about how when men decide to posture, and talking about posture, they actually expose their arteries. And they show different examples about when they posture and they throw their arms up or stretch their neck back or to do just physical posture. And I think sometimes you're right. We do that. We posture even mentally where we say like, no, real men don't talk about things or real men don't go things. Every year I share with players. There's an article in the Players Tribune by a guy who played overseas, and it says, "I'm not Connor McDavid." That's the title of the article. And one of the things that he talks about is like this perpetual being chased in a position in sport. But he's always trying to chase someone to gain that spot. And he talks about his struggle with depression and attempting suicide. And just this reality that it's like, no, like I need to think about who that person is. And I echo the saying that I always use, you're a person before you ever were a player. And one day when the whole sport is done, you're going to be, you're still a person. The play is gone. The play is ended. As Christians, it's a little bit different reality though, where I think God's put us in the position that we're in life, where we get to be spokespeople. We are what Christ would look like if he was a car salesman. What Christ would look like if he's a teacher, what Christ would look like if he's a basketball coach. How do you display that Christ likeness as a coach to maybe someone who doesn't have a relationship with Christ?
I think it speaks for, so people get our book titles misconstrued because they said, "Oh, you guys don't care about winning." It's like, no, I lose sleep when we lose. Like I care deeply about the scoreboard. But it's funny because even when you win the championship, you got the ring, you got the medal, you still wake up the next morning, you still have all your same responsibilities. You got to make your kids breakfast, you got to get them off to school, you got to recruit for, like, okay, you just get on the hamster wheel, you do it again. So there's always this chasing where you've got to be something more than that. So for me, say the question again. I started going in a different direction.
No, you did fine. You're right along with it. How do you show Christ likeness to someone who's playing for you who doesn't have faith, doesn't know who Christ is? Right. How do you do that? But you're still competitive. You're still in the game. You still you're still a person. How do you do it as a coach?
Right. This is where I was going. So our athletic director, his name is Nigel Mullen. He's our men's volleyball coach as well. And I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. Like he's, 2 conference championships, been national coach of the year. I've learned so much from him. And it always bugs him when people mention, well, winning's not that. He's like, no, winning's like, because he's very driven to win. And he said, Shane, as Christians, winning gives us a different platform. And so, him and I agree on that. We've gone back and forth and just sharpening each other on that whole theological perspective of winning. But it's whether you're winning or you're losing, when things are going good, when things are going bad, people are watching how you respond and being consistent in that. So when you're winning, who gets the credit? Jesus. When you're losing, who's bringing you through that? Jesus. Like your posture is always the same. What's your purpose? Where's your hope found? What's your foundation? Well, my foundation is in the cross of Christ. And so when it talks about boast in nothing but the cross, like numerous times throughout the New Testament, it talks about that. Like the only thing we should boast in is Jesus' finished work on the cross. Yeah, well, that counted for me. I believe in that. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to bend the knee to that. So you win. Who cares that we were better at putting a ball through a circle? It's like, let's think of the bigger picture. Well, all praise to him for allowing us to do that, give us the ability to do that, to be able to compete. Thank you for the other team. They helped make us better. Like we're all sharpening each other. And thank you for that opportunity to stay consistent with that. And you're not pointing inward. Oh, look at us. We did all this, whatever. And then when it's bad, same thing. Are they seeing you show up? Are they seeing you still study film? Are they seeing you still treat your players the same? Or are you now compromising your values? Are you willing to cheat? Are you willing to do things that are unethical in order to get the results that you want? Or are you just showing up and putting in the work every single day and being consistent and seeing that commitment to your faith and what you believe when things are hard? I think that's the greatest, because like, well, how do you do this? Like, well, my hope is in Jesus, and this really sucks right now, but I know there's something greater at work. And just be consistent in that. you don't have to get all theological about it. I think that's one of the greatest examples moving forward. And then people see that and I go, there's something different. There's a joy there. I'm big into listening to oh, what's his name? Wes Huff is on all the big podcasts right now all over the world. And he was on Diary of a CEO. And one of the biggest, again, I think it's like the sixth biggest podcast in the world. It's out of the UK. And this podcast host said to Wes about Christianity, because this guy's really searching, said, every Christian I come in contact with, there just seems to be they're just different. There's more hope around them. They're just more joyful. They're not so caught up in just the challenges, like the difficulties of the world. They're just more pleasant to be around. And I was like, yeah, we're supposed to be a pleasing aroma, salt and light, to others. And so that's not you being on the street corner or whatever. It's just like, just that when you're being real in your faith and you're walking closely with Jesus, it just radiates. And so I think as a coach, like all these different things you talked about, dude, it's not so much, do you know Jesus? Does he know you? And
Yeah.
how are you gonna know him if you're not? He gave us a book. For whatever reason, he decided to give us a book. Well, get into that book, listen to it, read it, put it in podcast, like whatever it is, there's no excuse. And it's like that's the number one way he's chosen to communicate with us. And then he wants us to talk to him.
Yeah, we hand out Bibles to hockey players or to anyone that wants one. But at the same time, I always explain it like this is an instruction manual for life. And there's
to thrive.
And there's examples in it. It's not just do this, do that, do this, do that. No. There's personal examples and eyewitness accounts of things that work and a lot of things that don't.
Yep.
And I think that's part of it is learning from our own mistakes, but learning from others. And I think that's why conversations like this are important because people can listen and say, hey, listen, we understand what has worked because I'm living walking proof of it. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we're superhumans. We've had failures too. We've talked a little bit about the downs. Talk a little bit about the ups. Coach of the year. When you get to be coach of the year, it's sometimes I have the running joke. I've used it already one time this season in this podcast, one episode. I got a badge for being humble, but I worked too much, so they took it away.
Right.
How do you take that experience and show gratitude with humility?
I think that's one of the gifts of the struggle to get there. The story of Matt Damon winning his first Oscar at 27, and he went home and he went to his hotel room that night. And he was like, "Well, this is it. Like I got this." Like it's a fascinating story to look it up online of just how he's like, "Hey, there has to be something more than just like I got this at 27, and now what?" Right? Tom Brady, 3 Super Bowls by the time he's 27, and he's on 60 Minutes talking about, okay, is this it? I've got the supermodel wife, $1 million contract, 3 Super Bowl wins, MVP. Now what? There has to be more to this. I'm like, yes, there's way more than this, right? That sort of thing. And all those things are good. For me, I remember like the night of this championship, and we got the host, which was great. So we were playing at home, which was a huge advantage, and it was unbelievable. I think we broke the fire code in our gym because there's so many people in there. I don't think it ever been that many people. And so on the Saturday night before the game was at 6 p.m. I'm in my office about 4. They just had the bronze medal game, and emotions are high, but I just had my Bible open to Philippians 3 and 4, right? And just reading about contentment and casting all your cares on Christ because he cares for you. And I was just like, it just kept reading through it, like, just, okay, Lord, just take it. Like whether win or lose, I said, just help us to represent you well tonight, to play together, to just do what we've been doing. And whether, again, this can go either way. It's a championship game. Both teams are really good. And it was probably the least dramatic game of the tournament. We were just leading the entire game and we won. And then afterwards, it was just satisfying to look at my players, look at my family members, look at our community members, and just reflect. And I just remember standing there just saying, thank you. I never envisioned this. Especially 3 years ago when I was questioning, should I keep coaching this team? Do they need another direction? And instead pivoted and just changed the whole direction of our program. And then things started going the other way. So I think I'd gone through enough rough seasons just to be like, okay, this can be all taken away in a minute. And like we're in a bit of a reset this year. We have the youngest roster that we've had in probably 5 years. So we'll see how we do. But the bigger picture is the excitement of, well, now we get to reset the foundation, the culture, grow with this group of guys. Before I won Coach of the Year 2 years ago, and before he won that championship, I started talking to coaches that had won it all. National championships, undefeated seasons, conference championships, like all over the place in the States, in Canada here, people on our podcast, whatever. And I would ask them, I said, so what changed? And their answer was really nothing. Like they said, we kind of got up the next day and just same. I said, so did you get paid more? No. Did you change jobs? No. Did your kids magically not cry in the morning and have to change diapers and all that kind of stuff because you're, the champion now? No. They said you still had all the same problems. I said, well, it might have been a little easier to recruit. I said, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But there's a documentary on Netflix on the Florida Gators when Urban Meyer coached them, and I watched that on the bus that championship year, and it gave me some perspective because even when they won, he was so consumed with he couldn't enjoy it because he was so consumed with the win. They won the national championship. And before he celebrated with his players, he ran to his office and was texting recruits for the next season. Right? Funny thing is, we won, we celebrate. I run out to my office and I actually texted 3 recruits for next year. I was like, what are you doing? Put your phone down and go enjoy
the moment.
The moment, right? I think I sent you a picture of that, me just sitting there in the gym of just taking it in and just watching. And so it can all be taken away. The championships are awesome. They give you a different platform. They're not going to fulfill you. They're nice. They're actually more fulfilling if they're not the main thing. That's what I found. The championship became secondary to me. And then I think I was able to enjoy it more than some people who have been in the same position. And I'm very thankful for that. Because, I still look at the pictures. You look at the medal, like it just reminds me of people.
Yeah.
Every time I see pictures of that championship year, it just reminds me of the sacrifice that my players made in order to be a team. And some guys stepped into roles that they didn't want, but they embraced it. And because we were so self-sacrificing, I think we just created a team that was, at least in our conference, unbeatable because we just out-teamed people because we had more buy-in. And it was just such a special year for that.
Well, this takes us to our portion of our show where we have 5 fast, quick questions that we're going to toss at you. We're going to launch them one by one. Quick questions means quick answer. No, it doesn't always mean quick answers, but give us a good answer for it. Are you ready?
I do this to our guests, so it's my turn to get.
That's right. Here we go. Right back at you. Okay. Athletes have routines. Some people call them superstitions. Some people call them pregame rituals. As a coach, what's your pregame ritual?
Have supper with if we're at home, I have supper with my family. Get to the gym early. Have my Bible open during the girls' game. My fridge is stocked of bubblies and Coke Zero, or basically, and I'll just sit there with my Bible open and just pray a little bit, read a few passages, finish watching the girls' game, and then we get going. So and on the road, just make sure I have my morning devotional. Like to go for a walk and get an exercise in. So that's the biggest thing. Get a quick lift in, move the body, and have a good meal and devotions. That's kind of the goal.
Okay, next year you get one recruit from basketball history. You can
Mm-hmm.
have this person at their prime, and he will play 1 year for your team. What player are you taking from all time in basketball and putting them on your team?
I'll say Larry Bird.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I like Larry. I don't know. The older I get, the more I just appreciate him.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm right with you. I was when everyone was a Chicago Bulls fan,
Mm-hmm.
I was a fan of individual players.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird.
Mm-hmm. Larry's good. There's so many other guys. Like I was a big Charlotte Hornet fan. I love Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, Michael was great. Just something. I think Larry would have been top 3 all time if his back didn't give out on him.
Yeah, or the Admiral.
David Robinson was something.
He was.
Yeah.
He was something,
Mm-hmm.
and he was flying under the radar the entire
Mm-hmm.
time.
A funny thing, I think I might pick second, possibly Tim Duncan, because I think he was the ultimate team captain, where he was just the consummate leader, not about him, but he was so good. And I think San Antonio was so good for so many years because he bought into being coached.
Interesting. Here, I thought you were going to go with Spud Webb, but you never.
He could dunk, but that's about it.
That's about.
Yeah.
He drew the attention. Favorite Bible verse.
Oh man. Like I shared the one from Genesis 50 to 20. You know, there's Carl Hindrager, he's a prof here at school, who is this can be not super quick. He was the head coach when we won the national championship in 1977. I brought him to do a Devo with my team 4 years ago when we weren't very good. And one of my players asked, "What was the secret to your success?" And he paused and he quoted Psalm 37:4, "Delight in the Lord your God, and he'll give you the desires of your heart." And then he quoted Matthew 6:33, saying, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you."
Mm.
And that's all he said. And my player just stared at him. I'm sitting off to the side. This is the year before everything kind of changed. Like, oh, okay, Lord, you brought him here to talk to me because I have not been delighting in you, and I have not been seeking your kingdom first. Wow. And until I start modeling that for my players, it's not going to be there. And so I had made a promise to my team back in 2019. We just got swept by SAIT, and SAIT out of Calgary had just won. They were in the midst of winning 6 conference championships in a row. And my players asked me, like, "So coach, what would you do if we ever beat them?" I said, "I'll get a tattoo if you ever beat them." I said, "But you got to sweep them." And they said, "Promise? Like this year?" I said, "Well, we're not going to do it this year. We're no good, but we're going to be in the future." So again, 2 years ago, they're ranked number 1 in the country. We go into their barn, we beat them, and we lost the next day. My phone blows up. Guys thought, I was like, "No, it has to be a sweep." Well, the next year when we won it all, we swept them. And so I had to get a tattoo. And so those are the 2 verses. We put those references on as a reminder because it was like, okay, Lord, like this is true, you know, but he gave us something deeper than just those wins. It was like, what was my true desire? So anyways, those 2 verses are pretty close to my heart. There's a bunch of others, but yeah.
Oh, I love that answer. As a kid, I memorized Psalm 37. And man,
such a good psalm.
Oh,
like, my goodness.
One of the verses that stood out for me was the wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor in spirit. But the Lord laughs at them because he knows their day is coming. And you're like, okay.
That's our God.
That's our God.
And we forget that so much.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay, question number 4. If we had the portion of this question was in our first season, if you could go back in time and talk to the 10-year-old self, but we reversed it this year. If you could write something for yourself to drop yourself a note 20 years from now, what are you writing down? Something that you'll never forget.
Oh man. If I could talk to myself in 20 years, it'd be just to remind myself that, you know, people over profit, like people matter more than, you know, the wins and all that kind of stuff. And never stop surrendering to the Lord every single day. Never stop talking to him, no matter how bad or good life is. Just that's what I tell people. Like, even if you don't believe, just never stop talking to Jesus. There's a great song by Brandon Lake called "Talking to Jesus." Makes me teary eyed every single time listening to it. I think it's the best song. But anyways, it's never stop talking to him.
Oh, I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, it's a good song. If anyways, I'll let you listen to it and then listen to the version he does a duet with a country guy, Rhett. Anyways, it's gold. They sing it at the Grand Ole Opry or something like that. It's good.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And jump right in on that one. Lastly, to close our time together, to the coach that's doubting himself.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to yourself in your weakest moment. Give us a word of encouragement.
Your worth is not in your record. And those hard seasons are probably laying the foundation, or you'll be able to plant the seeds for a fruitful future. Looking back, there's so many times where, Lord, when? And he's just like, do you trust me? Like, are you only going to trust me when it's good? And then because when you come out of it, it just makes it so much sweeter. The wins if you've always won, the wins just kind of get boring. If you're in that season, whether it's like your marriage is struggling or you have a wayward child or work is like, keep talking to him, keep surrendering every day, keep hoping and trusting, and then keep planting those seeds. And one day you're going to have a pretty cool story to experience and tell.
So cool. Well, we appreciate the time you've given to us. As always, we know that we're going to talk to you down the road. Let's close in a word of prayer together.
Awesome.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time that you've given to us to have with Shane. And Lord, we just know that it's a privilege to be able to talk about you. And Lord, often we don't give you enough credit for all the many things that you've done. And Lord, we've done that today, though. And we've talked about the amazing things and your fingerprints all over Shane's life. And we look forward to hearing what you have in store for the future. And Lord, we pray that as great things happen, that he would continue to give you all the glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
If you have enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and let us know your feedback. This podcast is listener supported, and you can be an encouragement to us by sharing this episode with others. With your help, we can reach more people with the gospel in the game.